Sorry, we have to do like social media stuff real quick. I think we're missing the clicker. Okay. Back. Sorry. All right. It was complicated. Anyway, it's me again. Yay. I'm Patrick D. I'm a security researcher for Sparebit. I do mentoring for Securium. And most of the time I really just dive into some random rabbit holes and then I post blog posts about it on Venture Digital. You might have seen one of those rabbit holes last year, which was the Ethereum Smart Contract Auditors 2022 Rewind. And that was basically a collection of summaries of all the, not all, but most of the incidents from last year. And I covered things like novelties, like phantom functions, things like double entry point tokens, read-only reentrancy, and all the usual stuff like missing input validation and missing access control and many more things. And this took quite a while to write because I really wanted to holistically understand what happened during the incident. And then I wanted to write a summary where when a experienced auditor reads that summary, he just immediately understands what the problem was. He doesn't have to read any more than the summary, basically. That was the goal. And that's why it took quite a long time to do. So this year I wanted to do it a little bit differently, a little bit more efficiently, optimally. And I was thinking about crowdsourcing is because basically each of these incidents is like a task and I could distribute those tasks and then I would get a result of the task as a summary. But then again, you can't just crowdsource this to anyone. You need actually experienced people to look at this. Then I was thinking maybe mentoring, maybe you can teach people how to write good summaries. But then the problem is that there's like over 100 incidents to go over every year. So keeping mentees motivated for this long requires a little bit more. And that's why I came up with the contest, basically. We would have mentees compete in a high score list to submit as many well-written summaries as possible. Some of you might be confused. What does mentoring have to do with technical writing? You're a smart contract auditor, so why are you not talking about bugs and code and stuff like that? But the thing is that I very firmly believe that learning how to properly write, how to do structured technical writing really teaches you and really practices structured thinking as well. So I would encourage all of you to practice more writing, to practice more technical writing, to maybe also practice your structured thinking. So anyway, back to the contest. So I was then thinking, okay, I need to manage this somehow. I don't want to manage it via messaging and stuff like that. So I needed to quickly build a platform. I was looking at many university course softwares and at like crowdsourcing platforms and stuff like that, but none of them offered really what I was looking for because I needed a way to distribute the assignments. I needed a way to have like an iteration with the mentees to go back and forth. I needed to score the submissions. I needed to have a high score list for the mentees to see. And I could have built this like with Next.js or something, but until I have a bug-free version of that, I could have just written the entire blog post myself again, so that wouldn't have been a solution. So what I ended up using is Bubble.io, where you can just click around without coding until you end up with the little web application. Goes against my pride using something like this, but you know, I did this within a single day and that's pretty good, so I can't recommend it for this. Then I announced it on Twitter as a technical writing contest, and at first we only were able to sponsor a single person to come here, accommodation, travel, and everything covered. Then Code Arena jumped in and they sponsored the whole thing. We were now able to enable 3 people to come here, covering everything, and 7 people at least got a ticket. So many thanks to Code Arena here. And finally, also many, many thanks to all the participants on the contest. As you can see, around 7 participants really actively participated. And together they worked through 113 incidents. And some of those incidents even have multiple submissions. So that's a luxury I have this year. I can basically pick and choose the best summary for each of the incidents, which is great. So thank you a lot for all this hard work. And now the top 3 will basically have a quick presentation about their takeaways, what they learned during this process. That's me, thank you.
Sweet. Hi everyone, I'm Ashik Amin. I'm here with Patrick and Auditor. And so part of the talk is just that I was asked to talk about my favorite incident that I wrote up as part of the contest. And I've chosen the Curve 0 day that happened earlier this year. So just a quick recap is that Curve, the DEX that everyone knows and loves, was exploited for 69 million in July. And the exploit took place because of a reentrancy issue, but it wasn't a stock standard reentrancy exploit because it was only made possible due to a bug in the Viper compiler for like a few issues of them. And this is interesting because it was the first time this has ever happened before, and I think it unlocked a lot of thoughts in people's head about what's actually possible for exploit instead of just usual source code, monitoring. So the point of this talk is not to talk about the actual details of the bug, it's just to talk about who is best in line to find it besides the attackers and besides the Viper team, right? Because we can't rely on just one team to find all the bugs in their own software. So we're going to just go back in time and assume that there is a bug in the compiler and try to figure out who's best in line to find it, right? So is it the Curve team? I'd argue no, because the Curve team, their job is to develop, right? They are devs. They should just focus on developing and doing some testing. And yes, they could have found a bug if they included another test to test the reentrancy guard, but I don't think there's any protocol that has scope to test all the features of a compiler, right? So maybe it's the people that build on top of Curve, because there's a bunch. There's Yearn Finance, Convex, a bunch of others, and it's in their best interest to make sure that Curve is safe as well, right? But in their case, they don't really want to be testing Curve. They don't have the time or resources to do it, so they'll just look at an audit report, right? So maybe it's the auditors, the Curve auditors. Still not, right? Because the auditors, solo or company auditors, whoever they are, they typically have very tight scopes and tight budgets, tight timelines. And if they were commissioned to test the Viper compiler, they might have found the bug, but in this case, they were just commissioned to test Curve, right? So who else is left? It seems like there's no one else, but the last line of defense is us, right? Everyone here in this room, the enthusiasts, the bug bounty hunters, the hobbyists. And the point of this talk is not to roast everyone to say that we're not doing a good job, but it's to say that there's other levels of the stack, right? There's other levels to security. It's not just manual review. It's not just Ethernote and code arena. It's not just Immunify. There's compilers. There's EVM quirks. There's node level issues, right? I mean, just one of the talks earlier was DDub, and they found the phantom function issue, and that's because they did a little bit of introspection, assumed their own boundaries, and just decided to breach it, right? And because of that, they were able to find their own 0 day. So that's our main takeaway from the talk. It's just to say that everyone can just do a little bit differently. Not better, because we're doing a great job, but to do things differently means that we'll be able to secure all of the stack and not just one layer. So thanks.
Hey everyone, I'm Jonathan. I'm going to talk about PalmFi incident and show you guys how this happened. This attack happened on June this year. The category is lack of validation, and there is like 3 important contracts in this. The ape staking contract, the S-ape, it's an ape stake contract too, and the last 3 are the compound-like implementation. Actually, the vulnerability is with the ape stake contract, And there are two issues in this contract. There are no length checks for the input, so the user can bypass this, and also he can set an already owned NFT of this contract and can bypass the last check. I made it, this attack is kind of complex because where we found information, it actually don't tell what the money flow. So actually I have to go through the transaction to check what's going on. So I made a video trying to simplify everything. Okay, so initially the attacker took like a flash loan, then he mines the S-Apple, used the Apple tokens, and then he used this S-Apple to mine some ISAP tokens, which is the compound-like implementation. Then the attacker deployed a new contract and exploit the first issue, sending non-NFT, and this ape staking contract gets the ape tokens from the S-Ape contract. Then he used the ISAP to get USDT and BTC from the compound implementation. And to get the ape tokens back, he used an already owned NFT and like deposit the NFT and withdraw. And he made it multiple times to get the ape tokens back. And having the ape tokens back, he paid the flash loan and make profit from the USDT and BTC tokens. Then we can also have like the transaction here. I'm going to jump this because it's the video, so you can have this, and then you have the borrow, and then you have like the deposit, transfer ape tokens, and that's it. Thank you very much.
Unfortunately, one of our top three guys couldn't come because of visa issues, so he sent a short 3-minute video.
In this presentation, I'm going to talk about the 100 Finance exploit. Before that, let me quickly introduce myself. I'm Vijay, a smart contract security researcher from India. I do audit contests on Sherlock and C4. I'm also part of Y Academy BlockFi Fellowship. First of all, why should we care about this attack? Because 100 Finance is a fork of Compound V2, and this attack vector is in the Compound V2 codebase itself, which is one of the most focal protocols in the DeFi space. 100 Finance already lost $7 million for this attack. So to prevent further exploits on Compound V2 forks, every developer and security researcher should be aware of this issue. This attack is similar to the well-known ERC4626 first depositor attack. The root cause of this issue is a rounding error in redeem underlying function. However, it can only be exploited if there is a market with zero liquidity. Unfortunately, 100 Finance created two BTC markets, one of which was used by the UI, but the other market was empty with zero liquidity. Now let's see how the attack works. In the first step, the attacker minted 2 way of hedge token. Then the attacker inflated the exchange rate by donating 500 bitcoins to the HBTC market. Due to this inflated exchange rate, 1 way of hedge token is now worth 250 bitcoins. At this point, the attacker has enough collateral to borrow funds from any market at its entirety. So the attacker borrowed all of the ether from the ETH market, which is worth 70 bitcoins. This is the crucial step of the attack where the attacker exploited the rounding error. The attacker redeemed almost all but 1 way of his collateral, for which 1.99 way of hedge token should be burned. But only 1 way of hedge token was burned due to the rounding error. Even though the attacker has an active borrow position, he was still able to withdraw all of his collateral from the system, because the system still thinks that the remaining 1 way of hedge token is worth 250 bitcoins. At this point, the attacker's borrow position is completely underwater, so the attacker liquidated himself to make the total supply zero again to attack the remaining markets. Now let's talk about the mitigations for this issue. If your protocol is already on-chain, Make sure that your markets will never reach a zero liquidity state by minting a small amount of C tokens and sending them to the zero address. And when listing a new collateral token, first set its collateral factor to 0, then mint some C tokens, burn them, and then change the collateral factor to the desired factor. Otherwise, an attacker can backrun your market creation transaction to drain the entire protocol using this attack. That's it, and thank you for your time and attention.